Let's be honest for a second. Life has a way of throwing surprises that nobody asked for. One day everything feels normal, and the next day something breaks, something happens, or something costs money you didn't expect. And for a lot of people, especially when money is already tight, that feeling hits even harder. So here's a question worth considering. What if you could build a safety net even when it feels like you're barely keeping up as it is? Starting an emergency fund when you're broke sounds almost impossible at first. But the interesting thing is this: a small safety cushion isn't just about money. It's about stress dropping, choices opening up, and life feeling a little less unpredictable. Even tiny steps in the right direction can change someone's confidence with money in ways they don't expect. Before we jump deeper into this, feel free to like the video to support the channel and subscribe if you want more financial content just like this. Alright, let's get into it. Starting an emergency fund when money is really tight isn't about doing everything at once. It's about noticing small opportunities and building habits that actually work in the real world. So let's go step by step. First, understanding what an emergency fund actually is. A lot of people hear the words emergency fund and think of thousands of dollars sitting around untouched. But that idea alone can scare someone away before they even begin. So let's reframe it a bit. An emergency fund is simply a small amount of money set aside so that when something unexpected happens, you're not forced into panic mode. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't need to take years to build. It just needs to exist. Think of it like a buffer, not perfection, not a complete financial makeover, just a buffer that gives you breathing room when you need it most. And here's something important to consider. Even a small emergency fund changes the decisions someone makes. If someone has $20 put away, that's $20 less panic. If someone has 50 or 100, that's 50 or 100 less chaos. So the first step is simply understanding that the goal is progress, not perfection. A lot of people get stuck before they begin because they compare themselves to people who already have savings. But comparing where you're starting with where someone else already is doesn't help anyone. The only useful comparison is where you are today and where you could be a month from now, even if that improvement feels tiny. Small savings grow faster than people realize because consistency matters more than the amount. Next, finding the first dollar when money is tight. This part is where many people feel discouraged. They might be thinking, how can I save anything when I'm already struggling? And that's valid. But here's where the idea of the first dollar matters. Starting doesn't mean someone has to magically find extra money lying around. It can start with things people don't usually notice. Consider things like rounding down purchases. If someone spends $9.50, rounding it to 10 in their mind and putting the difference aside might sound trivial, but it adds up. Or maybe someone sees a mini opportunity, like using a coupon or getting a small discount, and instead of letting that savings disappear into everyday spending, it gets moved to the emergency fund. Another option people overlook is collecting tiny windfalls. Birthday money, loose change, a cashback reward, a refund that shows up unexpectedly. These moments usually get absorbed into regular spending without much thought. But when someone intentionally captures them, the emergency fund starts growing without feeling like a sacrifice. Even just setting the goal of saving $1 a day or $5 a week can be surprisingly powerful over time. Not because the amount is huge, but because the habit becomes automatic. And here's the real point. When money is tight, saving isn't about how much. It's about proving to yourself that you can actually do it, even if it's small. That shift is more important than the number itself. Next, making the process automatic wherever possible. When people rely on willpower to save, it usually doesn't work. Not because they're irresponsible, but because life gets busy and stressful and unpredictable. So making the saving process automatic removes the mental effort. For example, if someone gets paid through direct deposit, many banks let them split their paycheck automatically into 2 accounts. Even if it's just $2 from every paycheck, it's money that moves before it has the chance to get spent. If splitting deposits isn't an option, setting up an automatic transfer once a week or even once a month helps too. A transfer of a few dollars doesn't sound like it matters much, but the point isn't the size. It's the consistency that creates momentum. Some people even use the tactic of naming the savings account something like emergency fund or backup safety net. because the label alone makes a person think twice before dipping into it. The brain reacts to names. A labeled account feels purposeful, and that purpose matters when someone is trying to protect their progress. After that, reducing the psychological pressure of saving. One of the biggest challenges isn't money, it's mindset. A lot of people think saving means I have to deprive myself or I can't enjoy anything anymore. That mindset can make the whole process harder than it needs to be. So a different approach is helpful. Instead of thinking I'm cutting back, someone can think I'm redirecting a tiny bit for future me. This small mental shift makes saving feel less like punishment and more like self-support. Another helpful thought is this: the emergency fund isn't competing with the fun things someone wants. It's competing with future emergencies. And emergencies don't care about timing. They show up when they show up. So having a fund is like building a shield that protects both your finances and your future fun. A useful exercise some people consider is imagining how it would feel if a small, unexpected expense came up, and they already had the money to cover it. That sense of relief alone can be motivating. And it's important to remove guilt from the process. If someone can only save a tiny amount, it doesn't mean they're behind. It simply means that every dollar saved is meaningful. Guilt isn't helpful, progress is. Next, finding micro-savings hidden in daily life. Micro-savings are small adjustments that don't feel like major sacrifices. They're the tiny leaks in everyday spending that people rarely notice. For example, someone might have a recurring subscription they don't use. Maybe it's a free trial that turned into a paid service. Maybe it's an app. Maybe it's a membership they forgot to cancel. Canceling just one unnecessary subscription can free up money every month without affecting quality of life. Another thing to consider is what some people call replacement habits. This means swapping one small spending habit for a cheaper alternative, even temporarily. Someone might swap a $5 snack for a $2 snack, or skip buying one thing per week. Those small swaps alone can build an emergency fund faster than people expect. There's also the strategy of found money. That's when someone declutters their room, closet, or space and sells something they don't use anymore. Even small items can bring in a few dollars. It's not about selling everything, just capturing value that's been sitting unused. And here's the key: none of these micro savings require big lifestyle changes. They're just small adjustments that free up a few dollars here and there. When those dollars get funneled into the emergency fund, momentum appears. Then, choosing the right place to keep the fund. Where the money goes matters. If it's too easy to access, someone might spend it impulsively. If it's too difficult to reach, someone might ignore emergencies, so the balance matters. Some people use a separate savings account with no card linked to it. Some use an online savings account so the money is slightly less accessible, giving them a moment to think before withdrawing. The goal is to have the money stored somewhere safe, separate from daily spending, and easy enough to reach in actual emergencies but not so convenient that it gets used casually. And it helps to remember, this money isn't supposed to grow from investing. It's supposed to be stable and available when something unexpected happens. Finally, growing the fund over time without pressure. Once the habit is created, the best part is that the emergency fund starts growing naturally. At this point, someone isn't forcing themselves to think about saving every second. It becomes automatic. Whenever income increases even slightly, channeling a small portion toward the emergency fund is one of the easiest ways to grow it painlessly. When expenses decrease, even for a month or two, that difference can go into the fund. And if someone ever dips into the emergency fund for a real emergency, that's not a failure. That's the fund doing its job. It means the system worked. The goal is always progress, not perfection. Over time, these small steps add up faster than most people expect. What starts as $5 eventually becomes $50, $50 becomes $100, $100 becomes $300, and each level brings more peace of mind. So let's quickly summarize what we covered. First, an emergency fund doesn't have to be huge to matter. Even tiny amounts change how someone feels about unexpected expenses. Next, the first dollar is the hardest, but it's also the most important. Then, automating the process removes the pressure and makes consistency easier. After that, Focusing on mindset helps keep things sustainable. Also, micro savings in daily life create small wins that add up. Then, storing the money in a good place protects it. And finally, growing the fund over time becomes natural once the habit is built. These small steps turn "I can't save" into "I'm actually doing it." If you made it this far, here's something interesting you can comment. What's one small change I could start with this week to build my emergency fund? Feel free to share your answer in the comments. It might inspire someone else watching too. And of course, if you enjoyed this video or found it useful, feel free to subscribe for more financial content just like this.